Hey guys, so I am back on YouTube after a huge hiatus. It's been a year since I've last filmed, and I'm super excited to just jump straight into this video. I am answering your questions, and you guys really pulled out all the stops with these ones. You asked some really hard-hitting questions, really in-depth and deep questions, and I've honestly been thinking about them all week, how I'm gonna answer them. Everything from what my favorite Netflix series is, which is a struggle in and of itself to answer, to what is the best piece of advice I've ever received. So without further ado, because I don't want this video to go on way too long, I'm just gonna jump right into it. I have a list of your questions. Each of them is almost a paragraph long, so I might be looking down to read them, but let's just go straight into it. Question number one, what makes you tick? As in, what drags you out of bed in the morning when you don't want to get out of bed? So, what makes me tick is, well, two things. Number one is focusing in on my why. So there's a lot of kind of, I don't know if it's buzz talk, but like a lot of talk about figuring out what your why is, especially around business, but even around life. So for me, when I might be struggling to get out of bed because of anxiety or depression, or I just want to stay in bed, I always remind myself why I do what I do. It's really important to me that I speak up about issues that matter to me. Advocating mental health is really important to me, and creating community that makes everyone feel like they belong is really important to me. So when it is really hard for me to get motivated to kind of get up or do the work, I really remember that. I remember my story, my experiences, feeling lonely myself, the things that I've struggled with, and then that just reminds me why I do what I do, and then inspires me to get up. The second thing is getting outraged or fired up. I'm a very passionate person, and when I'm experiencing a bit of a lull, sometimes what really helps is just finding something that gets me fired up, whether it's, you know, a body negative post on the internet or some kind of commentary on Reddit about something, whatever it is. If I get really fired up, then I just want to get going. I'm like, do you know what? I'm out of bed, I'm fired up, I'm gonna do an Instagram stories rant or whatever the case may be, and that tends to really energize me. That being said, there are some mornings where it's not easy to get up, and that's okay, and where I just need another hour or so. So I also give myself that freedom. Number two, do you ever struggle with decision making? As a person with anxiety, I can have a hard time making decisions, and I get stuck in the mud of the little details and what could go wrong with each choice. Yes, this question, guys, I never thought that my struggles with making decisions or my decision fatigue, I never put two and two together and thought it would be linked to my anxiety. But I'm so grateful that this person said, with your anxiety, do you struggle with this? Because I was like, yes, that's my anxiety. That's why I struggle with this. I really struggle with making decisions. Any of my friends who have gone shopping with me, or Daniel at the grocery store, they all know I could stand there forever. And whether it's a big decision or a small decision, it takes me so long. I get totally caught up in the details of it. I think of all the eventualities. I think this is why I get decision fatigue, which is a real thing. By Friday, I am done. Where do you want to go for dinner? I don't care. I have decision fatigue. I will go anywhere and eat anything. So yes, in short, yes. Number three, I'm interested in ed recovery, eating disorder recovery. Do you have relapses? If so, how did you get it in check? And if not, what has kept you from relapsing? So this is a really hard-hitting question as well. I'm recovered from an eating disorder. I struggled with anorexia and bulimia. I have not relapsed since I was in recovery, really. Now, would I say, no, I never relapsed, that's done? I would never say that because my life isn't over yet, so I don't want to give that impression. I don't know. Will I relapse in the future? I don't know. Have I relapsed since recovery? No, I have not. Obviously, through recovery, it was a whole process of triggers, setbacks, relapses. That whole cycle went on for a number of years. But to this day, do I relapse? No. However, I do still have thoughts. And I wouldn't even say they're temptations. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, and we said they're kind of like shooting stars. So if I am having a day where maybe I don't feel great about my body, or something else mentally is going on, a thought will just kind of shooting star across that maybe someone who hasn't gone through an eating disorder wouldn't have. A thought about, some past behavior, like what if, that kind of thought. However, I don't act on those thoughts. I'm not even tempted by those thoughts, but they are there, and I think that that's totally normal. So if you experience that, it's normal, you're okay. Number 4, what has makeup taught you about self-love and appreciating yourself on the inside and out? I love talking about this. As a lot of you know, I'm really passionate about makeup. I went to school to get my makeup artist certificate just as a bucket list item. What has it taught me about self-love? Makeup to me is a hobby, and it's always been a form of self-expression ever since I was a teenager. So for me, makeup is really how I express like what's on the inside, on the outside. Now, as I've kind of grown and I've adopted it more of an art, like I wouldn't necessarily say what I'm wearing today is specifically telling you something about what I'm feeling, but it is one of the ways that I express myself. It's one of the ways that I kind of express my identity, how I'm feeling, who I am. I've gone through a lot of different phases. What it's taught me about self-love, a few different things. I think that any creative hobby is really important for mental health and really important just for self-love and learning, you know, what you're capable of. So seeing myself progress with my makeup artistry has been huge. It's also very meditative for me. So this isn't really self-love, so to speak, but this is more just mental wellness. I find that when I'm doing my makeup, it can be very meditative and I just get really immersed in it, and then everything else just disappears. So that's been huge. It also is a confidence booster, not in the way that I feel a lack of confidence without makeup, but when I have created a look that I love, then it boosts my confidence in myself, not in how I look, but actually in myself. I hope like there is a difference there. So that's how I would define like my relationship with makeup and self-love. Do you struggle with time management? If so, what are your tips and tricks for managing a busy schedule? So as some of you may know, I wear many different hats. I have a couple different jobs, and my schedule does get quite full. I actually do not believe in the busy lifestyle. I don't really buy into it. I try very hard to not answer like if someone's like, how was your week? I try very hard to not be like, oh, I'm so busy, because I just don't think, that's not something I aspire to. If I say I'm busy, I know that that means I'm actually doing something wrong with my schedule, but I do have a full schedule. Recently, I actually listened to an amazing podcast that I'll link below by Being Boss, and they were talking about time management. And I developed a schedule for myself because I work from home, so I manage my own schedule. So I developed a schedule for myself. I didn't use anything fancy, just Google Sheets. And I color coordinated, and I even blocked off things like lunch. I have blocked off days that I won't take meetings, like I don't take meetings Mondays and Fridays. I've put in time for exercise. I put in like my various jobs and what tasks I'll do. And I keep this just taped by my desk, and I find it's really helpful. One of the most important things I've found is having boundaries. So if I've blocked off a certain day to do a certain task, like Fridays I manage Libero submissions, I don't make meetings for Fridays, and Fridays that's what I do. I don't move that schedule around. I don't book appointments. So I have some non-negotiables in there. Another thing that's been really helpful for me is not doing in-person meetings. And at first I had a lot of resistance to this as I started seeing some of my other friends do the same thing. But I realized, like, if I have to drive across the city to go and meet someone, I end up losing half a day. And as someone who does struggle with anxiety, not that that really holds me back, but like, anxiety definitely gets worse when I feel my schedule's out of control. I don't really do well kind of like moving my schedule around personally, like, oh, I'll just not work during the day and I'll work all night. Like that doesn't work for me. So I realized every time I was going somewhere to do an in-person meeting with someone, I would end up losing about half the day, if not more, just between travel and like buffer time around it. So I've moved as many meetings as possible to Skype, like virtual meetings. And I've really stuck to that boundary, and it's been so incredibly helpful. So that would be like my main thing. First of all, come up with a schedule, have your non-negotiables, choose the times when you won't have meetings, and also if you need to set boundaries around what types of meetings and how you will do them in person or not. How did Libero magazine come about, or how did Libero come about? This is a long story, but in short, 8 years ago, we actually just celebrated our 8-year anniversary. I wrote out my story. I posted it on Facebook as a Facebook note. I started receiving loads of messages that I wasn't expecting from people I didn't even know. It was getting shared around by people I didn't even know. And I decided to launch a Facebook page to be kind of a community. Then I decided to launch a blog. Then I started networking with other bloggers and writers and sharing their stories. And then more people wanted to share their stories, and it just snowballed out from there. I will put more links about Libero in the description box below, but in short, I guess that's how Libero started. It was mostly accidental. It was the best accident that ever happened. What's one of the habits you'd like to change, and what steps would you like to change, or what steps would you like to take to change it? So my number one habit that I would like to change is bringing perfectionism into my self-care. So what I mean by this is there's certain things that I know are really good for my self-care. Those are things like journaling, stretching. I have a really bad hamstring, so like rolling out my hamstring, doing stretches, taking baths, like just a bunch of little activities that are also enjoyable. Meditating. What I do is I bring my perfectionism into that, and I want to schedule it out. So I'll be like, oh, I really need to start journaling every night before bed. I really need to meditate every morning when I get up. And instead of just thinking, I should really meditate right now, or oh, I'm feeling a little tense, I should roll out my muscles, do some stretches, I make it this big thing, and then I put it off because I've made it such a big thing and something that I have to perform perfectly. So that's a habit I really, really want to change, because it basically is a barrier between me and self-care. How I'm gonna do that is I'm trying really hard, and I'm trying to just if I think about something that I wanna do, just do it. How do you create when you feel like your creative energy and inspiration is minimal at best, and what do you do when you start to feel this way? So I do have very creative work. Writing, doing videos, and I definitely get creativity burnout or times lulls in my energy or just in my passion. This would go back to what I was saying, gets me out of bed in the morning. Focusing in on my why can definitely help. Another thing that helps is getting amped up and passionate about something. So finding a topic, finding a hot button issue, finding something that I can sink my teeth into and commentate on, talk about, write about. That really gets my creative juices flowing. Other things that do are reading books, listening to podcasts. That one's really huge right now. There's a few that I'm loving. Watching good YouTube videos. Basically taking in the content I like to produce helps kickstart my creative energy again, if that makes sense. And then other times I just need to take a bit of a break. But for the most part, usually I'm able to kind of I'm thinking of those life things, just shock the creative energy back in just by doing some of these things or taking in some of the content that I then like to create. What are your thoughts about comments about real bodies on social media? My thoughts are that all bodies are real bodies. There's no such thing as a fake body unless you're talking like a fake doll. And all bodies are different, which means there's no such thing as a right or wrong body or a right or wrong way to have a body. So this one is one that one of my friends kind of called me out on, so to speak. And she said, you used to post makeup all the time on your social media and makeup videos, and then you suddenly stopped. What happened? Mostly my perfectionism happened. That I have struggled a lot lately. That's one of the reasons that I've gone a year without making a YouTube video. I really let my perfectionism get the best of me, my fear of failure, of not being good enough, get the best of me. So in regards to makeup, I was always trapped in this place where I felt like I was out of practice, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't inspired because of that, and then I wouldn't do makeup, which would put me more out of practice and make me feel more like I wasn't good enough, and it kind of spiraled from there. In addition to that, I've struggled a lot with dehydration with my skin, and which is fine, nobody has perfect skin, right? But what was happening is when I'd sit down to do my makeup, my foundation and stuff would just get sucked into my dehydrated skin, and it would end up not looking good at all. And for me, it was really discouraging. So the process of applying makeup kind of lost that joy for me, which is really a shame. So then I wasn't enjoying it. So even when I felt like confident enough to do makeup and maybe post it, then all of a sudden I would see all these issues with my skin. I'd run into the decision fatigue trying to figure out what to do to fix it. And it was just this spiral that just went from being a very love relationship to like kind of a hate relationship. And then working from home, it's really easy to kind of fall out of the habit of doing makeup. That being said, guys, this week I've had to do 3 days in a row of full face makeup because I had a photo shoot that I'm filming this video and, you know, other reasons. And I'm loving it again. I am not perfect at it, but nobody is. But like I was able to kind of get back on the horse really well. So if you're in a similar place, I encourage you to just dive in and do it. Find a reason that you need to. Dive in, do a full face, wake up the next day, do it again. I already feel like I have finessed some of my skills just in the past 2 days. So that has really energized me to get back into it. That being said, I am trying to balance makeup with mental health. I'm not a beauty guru by any means, so I'm still trying to find that balance. Let me know in the comments, do you guys want makeup videos? Do you want to see my makeup on Instagram, or do you prefer body image, mental health, those topics? Really just let me know, because I also want to make sure that you guys are getting what you want from me. What has been your biggest mental health setback, and what did you do to get through it? Not gonna lie, this question was actually supposed to come up like a few questions back, and I looked at the page and I saw that I'd left a space to answer and it was still blank, because this is a really tough one for me to think about and a tough one for me to answer. But I would say that my biggest mental health setback, apart from like when I fell into having an eating disorder and things like that, but like once I've been on this kind of mental wellness journey, recovery journey, it was really getting achalasia. And I've talked about that a bit. I'll link to like a blog below. I might do a video on it, but it's this really rare swallowing disorder that I developed that basically left me unable to eat. It's crazy. It was a really big setback for me because I was in such a good place mentally and even physically before that. And then my physical health just plummeted. And next thing you know, it was like I couldn't swallow my food and I had no energy and I was just really, really unwell. And I got very depressed, especially once I got the official diagnosis, because I was hoping that wasn't what it was, because there's no actual cure beyond surgery, which I've had now. But I was very depressed, and what got, now I'm getting emotional. It's not a true Q&A unless you get emotional, but what really got me through, I mean, my relationship really helped get me through, being in a really supportive relationship. Realizing how many people cared about me and were standing by me through like such a difficult time really helped get me through. And I really had to wake up and start managing my stress, because the more stressed I was, the more constricted my throat was, and the more likely I wouldn't be able to eat for a few days. So I really got a wake-up call for managing my stress, managing my well-being, managing my mental health through that experience. Okay, something a bit lighter. What got you into Betta Fish, and what is your advice for new Betta Fish owners? I am so glad I got this question, guys. I've been dying to talk about Betta Fish on my channel a bit more. So I got into Betta Fish mostly because I was in university and that's like the best pet to have. Did not know how to take care of them at all. So when I decided to get back into aquariums, which I think mostly was just, oh yeah, fish have always been relaxing for me, and I hadn't had a fish for a long time, and I decided I wanted to get a fish, and my default had always been Betta Fish, and I like to focus in on one thing and do it well. So community tanks didn't really vibe for me because you have to learn about so many different fish. So I chose Betta Fish. My advice for new Betta Fish owners are minimum 5-gallon tank. Just have to do it. They cannot live in less than that. If you have less than that, then like minimum 2.5 gallon, and then you want to be doing water changes like 2 to 3 times a week. They need a heater. Betta Fish need to have a heater. They're tropical fish. No sharp plants. I had a lot of plastic plants and sharp decor in my initial aquariums, and those tear your Betta's fins. So you can do the nylon test, where if you run a nylon over something and it doesn't snag, then it's safe. So things like real plants, like terracotta pots, hamster tubes, things like that are typically always safe for Betta fish. And then the final and most important thing, because this is what will kill your Betta fish, is look up what cycling means, a cycled filter, and make sure you have a cycled filter and a filter that you keep cycled if you're gonna house a Betta fish or any fish. Canister filters where you throw out the carbon cartridge once a month are gonna kill your fish. That killed 4 of my fish before I learned the hard way. So learn about cycling and make sure you do it. Make sure you're ready for the commitment, because it takes time, it takes money, it takes energy. It's not like having a dog, but it's its own thing because it's a pet combined with a hobby. So you're dealing with a hobby, which is great, but takes time and money, and you're dealing with a living thing. So it's kind of the two combined. So take that into consideration. Also consider that Betta fish, if cared for well, can live up to 5 years. Here's the big one. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received? I thought about this for so long. I'm so glad someone asked me this question. I don't have one answer for this, but what I do have is a few things that people have told me that have really stood out to me, and I've chosen different categories as my cheating get around for not having one single answer. So the first most important thing anyone ever told me, and I don't even think this person knows how important it was the night after the most difficult night of my life, when I had actually contemplated suicide. And I was on campus, and one of my friends, mostly acquaintance, bumped into me, and she had no idea what was going on, but she said to me, "No one has the right to tell you who you are." And that has always stuck with me. I have gone through a lot of verbally abusive relationships. I have dealt with internet bullying. I've dealt with in-person bullying. And I just always reference back to that. No one has the right to tell you who you are. The second piece of advice came from one of my professors. After she read my story, she said, "Lauren, I have one thing to tell you. It's that your body is your ally, not your enemy." And I've referenced this a few times in my writing, but when I was early on in recovery, first in recovery at that point, it felt so much like my body was working against me, and in order to recover, I had to go to battle with my body, which wasn't really the case. So hearing and getting reminded that my body is actually my ally, it really shifted my focus and perspective, and I've always just carried that with me. The last two are in reference to business, and these ones really are pieces of advice, not just words of wisdom. So number one comes from Judge Million from People's Court, because as you guys might know, I am a huge fan of People's Court, and it's get it in writing. That has been huge for me in business. If you're running any kind of business of any kind, if you're swapping money of any kind, get it in writing, get contracts out. It's so, so important. And then number two comes from Roberto Blake, who I found out about here on YouTube. And his advice is always to diversify. So that was big for me, because there was a time when I thought, oh, maybe I should give being a YouTuber a shot. But business is about so much more than just doing one thing, especially about so much more than just being on one platform, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Instagram. It's really important to diversify, especially if you have a personal brand. And that really was a game changer for me, and just how I am plotting out my future. And to end on a light note, and yet one of the most difficult ones to answer, do you have Netflix? Yes. And what is your favorite series? Schitt's Creek right now. Oh my gosh, Schitt's Creek is my lifeline right now. Daniel Levy, can I just say, is my absolute spirit animal hero, new wannabe best friend. I love him. I also have been loving Bob's Burgers, but sadly that took a shelf to Schitt's Creek. And then for ones that I've already watched, Better Call Saul was amazing. I loved Breaking Bad too. I liked the legal aspect though of Better Call Saul. Arrested Development is like just the bomb. IT Crowd, I watch those over and over. I love watching documentaries, and I'm really loving, and I have always loved, Planet Earth. I'm watching Planet Earth 2 right now. I just finished Blue Planet. So yeah, so that's it, guys. Those are the questions. Thank you again so much for sending them to me. If you enjoyed this video, let me know. Send me a message, put it in the comments, hit the thumbs up button. Let me know if you want me to do more of these, if you have any questions that you want me to include in a future video. I'm also considering, these questions were all so great that I feel like each one could be a video in and of itself. So if there's a specific one that really stood out to you that you would absolutely love to see me do a whole video on, please let me know that as well. It doesn't matter where you're watching this, you know how to get in touch with me. Just get in touch with me whatever way that is. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button as we do here on YouTube. Remember, you are always stronger than you think, and I will talk to you guys really soon. Bye. Hey guys, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please remember to hit that like button. If you haven't yet, please remember to hit the subscribe button. It goes a long way to help my channel. You can also check me out on other social media, Instagram, Facebook. All the links are in the description box below. And if you're looking for mental health resources or support, don't forget to head over to LiberoMagazine.com to read our articles, to share your story, and to join the community because we'd love to have you there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Mwah.